Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, consider subscribing. I upload new videos every Wednesday and some Saturdays. All right, so today's video, I'm finally gonna do the mid-year freakout tag. I've been seeing these all over YouTube and I've been wanting to do it, but every time I sit down to answer the questions, there's always a few that I can't figure out an answer to. And so I've been putting it off, and I've just gotten to the point where I'm just gonna omit the questions that I could not figure out an answer to because this is taking me far too long. With that said, I'll start the video by talking about how many books I've read so far this year, and I've hit the 49 book mark. I almost wish that I could have waited just a little bit longer so I could say that I hit an even 50, which by the way was my yearly goal, so that's nice. I met my goal for the year. I might extend it to maybe 75. It would be really cool if I could hit 100, but I don't know that that will happen. I guess we'll find out. All right, so the first question is the best book that I've read so far this year. That has to go to The Stand. And my goodness, what a book to start the year 2020 with. I remember when I was reading the first part of the book where he just goes into extreme detail talking about how the superflu virus spread from the lab initially to the entire country and then the rest of the world, as I was watching the coronavirus being spread from China to the rest of the world. It was literally frightening. However, I did a whole review on this book and I just loved the character development in this book, and it was so well done that it kept me engrossed for the entire 1,000+ pages that was this book. The ending left something to be desired, but it was such a short portion of the book that it didn't ruin it for me. So yeah, best book, definitely The Stand. Second question is the best sequel that I've read so far this year. There is one series that I really like to keep up with, and it's part of Kindle Unlimited. It's the Tracy Crosswhite series by Robert Dugani, and I read books 6 and 7 this year, and that was A Steep Price and A Cold Trail. I don't know, I just love this series. It follows a detective. She's a Seattle detective, and it's super cool because I live in Seattle, so I know the cities and the streets that he names in the book, and that's kind of really cool to follow. We also have seen the main character grow a lot from the very first book to this very last book, where now she's like a new mom and she's moved outside of the city and she's trying to strike that balance between working and parenting. So yeah, I'll go with those books. Those were the best sequels. Third question is a new release that you haven't read yet but want to. I think I'll give this to If It Bleeds by Stephen King. I actually have already started reading it. I finally got off the waitlist at my library. Other than that, I don't really follow new releases all that often. Maybe that's something that I should get into. All right, fourth book is the most anticipated release of the year, Rhythm of War. This is Brandon Sanderson's fourth book in the Stormlight Archive. I already have the book pre-ordered. I already have the audiobook pre-ordered. When this releases, I'm probably going to be sick and sit down and just read the whole thing all day long. Already planning for it, can't wait. The next question is, what was my biggest disappointment? For this, I'll pick two books. First is actually Edge Dancer by Sanderson. This is book 2.5 of the Stormlight Archive. I didn't love the main character in this book, Lift. Luckily, it was pretty short, and I talked about this in my graphic audiobook video because I actually listened to this book on graphic rather than reading the actual book. And then the next book is Embracing Failure. So I picked this book up because I wanted to discuss something like this in my commencement speech that I gave to my seniors that graduated this year. And this book was just useless. I don't think that it provided anything that was insightful. The only good thing about it is that it was short. But in the end, I didn't use it at all. I did stick it out. I read the book, but definitely not something that I would recommend to anyone. All right, next question, the biggest surprise. And this has to go to Verity by Colleen Hoover. This book is dark. I've actually read a couple of Colleen Hoover's books, and I think she mostly does young adult or new adult. Verity is definitely more leaning toward adult since the main characters are adults themselves, specifically their parents. And I think this book just takes a huge step away from her normal writing. And the premise is we're following this mom who is having a very hard time adjusting to being a mom, and it doesn't go away as the kids start to get older, and she becomes extremely jealous of her husband's attention to the kids over herself. This book is very disturbing, and some of the comments point that out, but that was kind of my favorite part of it. I mean, it's fiction. I wouldn't want to read about this happening in real life, but it's fiction, so that makes it okay, right? Either way, I could not stop reading this book. I really enjoyed it. The ending just yeah, I still don't know what to make of it. I gave it 5 stars and I would definitely recommend this one. The next question is my favorite new author, and I think I'm gonna have to give that to Octavia E. Butler. So I read her book Kindred for the first time this year and I really enjoyed that book. Basically, she is an African-American fantasy writer, and so her novels are centered on fantasy with African Americans. And Kindred follows a woman who is transported back in time, and because she's Black, she's transported to a period in time where she's actually a slave. And you get to follow her experience going back and forth between the 2 time periods. It's really fascinating. And because I enjoyed that so much, I'm definitely gonna add some more of her books to my reading list for the rest of the year. The next question is newest fictional crush. I'm actually gonna pick 2 here. I'm gonna pick a fictional one and a non-fictional one. So one of the books that I enjoyed this year was When We Believed in Mermaids, and this was a Kindle Unlimited read, and it follows these 2 sisters, and one of the sisters takes a trip from California to New Zealand where she meets this Spanish guy who's also visiting, and I mean, he had an accent, so. And then another favorite book that I read this year was Trevor Noah's book Born a Crime. I really enjoyed this book. It is just as funny as you would expect it to be from a comedian, and the thing I really love about Trevor Noah's comedy is that it isn't funny for just the sake of being funny. There's always some message behind his comedy, and he interlaces his entire book with things like that. It was super enjoyable to read, and I definitely recommend this one if you haven't read it yet. And I will end the video with the most beautiful book that you've bought or received so far this year. And I'm gonna pick 2 again. I'm gonna pick first what I consider to be the most beautifully written book that I've read this year, and that would be The Murmur of Bees by Sofia Segovia. This was another Kindle Unlimited read, and I really enjoyed the writing in this book. Very poetic, full of metaphors, and just good literary writing. This is a book that I highly recommend. And then the most beautiful cover, I think I'm gonna give that to the Book of Lost Saints, simply because that blue is my favorite color. And this was actually another pretty beautifully written book. A lot of imagery in here. I have a review on this book. I don't know if it'll be posted before or after this video, but it's definitely coming, so watch out for that. All right, guys, that's it for my mid-year book tag. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.